They started out primarily as like a roasting and like wholesale bean sales, right? At least that's where I know them from. And to go from there into the retail stores, it's kind of an interesting way to run it because they've sort of created a brand. Like, I mean, I know who they are. I've never been to a retail store before. So they sort of created this brand awareness. And then once you plop them in a retail store, people automatically know who you are. They're like, oh, they're here. They have a retail store. It kind of blows my mind that they have a full menu like put together when all I've ever seen is like you can buy their beats through Amazon.
Welcome to the Coffee Experts Club, where we discuss all of the insights, expertise, and drama that goes into making your passion your profession. Our hosts, Aaron, Ben, and Drew, are three coffee experts who have taken their coffee experience and turned it into true expertise. They have consulted with major coffee brands throughout the United States and beyond, providing operations expertise and growth strategy for drive-through openings, multiple locations, and everything in between. So brew yourself a cup and hang out a bit with the Coffee Experts Club.
Here we are, another week. Welcome back to Coffee Experts. How was life, sir?
My life's good, man. I'm got a lot of stuff coming up, so I'm trying to take it easy this last week that I'm down here in the great state of Texas. Visited good old Black Rifle Coffee. I was just telling Ben, fantastic company.
You should talk about that more because I haven't been to it, and they're getting a larger and larger name for themselves in the coffee world, in the retail coffee world. So what was it like? What was it like being there versus your traditional coffee shop?
It's always packed. I've been there a couple times, and the parking lot is packed to the brim. People walking up, and their aesthetics is really nice. They're just black and white, so it looks really modern, really clean.
Yeah.
The service was great. I pulled up to they have an order box you pull up to, and there's actually a huge like LED monitor with some really fantastic POS imagery. Yeah, and the service was good. I was telling Ben, it's not the traditional, uh, you know, group of people that you'd see working at a coffee shop because they do hire. I think what we were talking about is mostly veteran based type people, but the service was great, real talkative, really nice. I asked the guy, he said that they're always busy. They're upgrading some of their software systems right now. So I had the chance to ask him some questions and help him, through his whatever he was working on at the window. But yeah, really nice. They got a really kind of an expansive menu.
Hmm.
Last time I went through, I got something called a espresso mule. And I was like, okay, it sounds like something that'll give me a kick, like a donkey. And I got it, and it was like a Moscow mule, but with espresso minus, vodka. And it was this interesting.
Good.
It was what is it? Limey, and gingery. Yeah, it was interesting because it was like an espresso tonic, but with, that lime in there. So, but yeah, I had an all around really good experience. It was a big place. Plenty of employees. It looks like they actually serve. They have, anything from regular old espresso, iced coffee. They throw fruit in their teas and stuff like that. Good old Texas. We love our tea down here. And yeah, and they had nitro cold brew. It was cool. It was a good experience. Good time.
Because didn't they start out like they're sort of running it backwards because they started out primarily as like a roasting and like wholesale bean sales, right? At least that's where I know them from. And to go from there into retail stores, it's kind of an interesting way to run it because they've sort of created a brand. Like, I mean, I know who they are. I've never been to a retail store before. So they sort of created this brand awareness. And then once you plop them in a retail store, people automatically know who you are. They're like, oh, they're here. They have a retail store. It kind of blows my mind that they have a full menu like put together when all I've ever seen is like you can buy their beats through Amazon.
Yeah, they're my go-to on road trips too. They got the canned espresso and things like that.
Interesting. Yeah. And I mean, from what I've seen of them too, like they've really nailed down a pretty strong avatar as well. Like as far as like God Guts Guns, right? Like that's their avatar, right? Like that very extreme right wing, like that conservative crew, I would say is from what I've seen their ideal avatar. So that's really interesting too, right? Like a coffee shop that really calls out, no, this is pretty much the kinds of people that we are typically used to. Obviously makes sense to have retail locations in Texas of all places, right? Like that's probably a good place to do it. But
Yeah.
interesting for sure, Ben, because I do think that they started pretty strong with that whole online Amazon based fulfillment, strong marketing, right? They always had I've always seen really strong marketing around them and they let that roll into retail. I think that is an interesting business model.
I mean, even when you call out who you're going to serve explicitly and, kind of pin that down, you're going to get publicity and people are going to want to try your stuff anyways. I didn't go drink their coffee because of their marketing stuff. I've just, wanted to try some Black Rifle coffee. And it's not because I'm necessarily in the pool of direct advertisers, but they do have really good coffee. I was telling Ben, I got a cold brew today and it was actually excellent.
Now that in itself is pretty interesting to me, Drew. And do you think that, because I know that's not necessarily, you're not their ideal avatar necessarily. So what do you think it was? Do you think it's because you're entrepreneurial, because you've seen them really like make a splash? Like there's that like interesting, like let me lean into this and go pull it apart a little bit. Is that what led you into it at first? Or did you try their stuff online first and that's what led you into wanting to see their retail? Or was it purely like, I didn't realize these guys even did retail. Let's go check this out.
Well, regardless of people's opinions, I enjoy an atmosphere of conviction. So, they are strong. They're really they're very outspoken.
Yeah.
And that in itself, whether or not I agree with it or don't agree with it, is an attractive concept to me because, when you say what you're about and you stick to your guns, no pun intended, it's just an attractive concept.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's definitely, they definitely didn't go about it in the traditional coffee retail way, which is maybe why they garnered so much attention out the gate.
It's definitely a more profitable way, right? As far as like, if you don't have to do overhead, you don't have to pay for a lease, you don't have to like tie in all of those things. If you can splash into it, which is pretty impressive in and of itself, because there are a ton of people out there doing it fulfilled by Amazon game, you know what I mean? With their coffee. We tried to do it, right? Like we tried to be fulfilled by Amazon for roasters and resilient, right? So I think that there's a lot of people in that market share that they were able to jump in and make such a big splash. And maybe that's how pretty brilliant of like raising your capital to be able to then go do some opening of locations where that you need that raised capital. We all know that like it's going to cost probably a few $100,000 to go open your first location. Like it's interesting.
Well, and what is nice, especially about the way that it is, like you said, they had the working capital. So the way that they executed that retail location is obviously not half-assed. It's actually really nice and looks good. And I suppose just speaking from an outside perspective, because we haven't really ever worked with them, they kind of define what type of people would be well integrated into their crew. And so when you do go there, you get a type of person. They're all real friendly, really nice, but you do get a type of person. And so when you see that and you understand the branding and you're that type of person, well, you'll be happy to go work there, which is kind of a cool thing because you already create that culture within your people before they even exist. They kind of feel connected to it.
Yeah. They said, this is our culture and we want people who are like this working for us. And people go, hey, that's me.
I do think there's something to be said about stepping into something all in. I think that if Chick-fil-A has taught us one thing, it's that. Like obviously they've stepped all in and like they garnish the kinds of people that they do because of the convictions they've stepped into, and obviously you get the negative blowback from that as well, from the people that don't necessarily, like hold those things. But I will say too, like probably in a less like politically stimulated way, In-N-Out, they just do burgers. Like if you want something out, if you want chicken from In-N-Out, you got to go someplace else. You know what I mean? Like if you want anything but burgers and fries, you're SOL. Like that's all they do is burgers and fries, and I know that there are a lot of people out there that are like, if I just keep expanding my menu, that's actually how I'm going to make more money instead of, well, let's pull that apart a little bit. Could the secret be leaning in to things that you're really passionate about and making a name for yourself for that so that you actually become a drawer of those people that are really, drawn to the same thing.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually, that I don't think we're really talked a lot about when it comes to coffee retail and opening up shops, and that's quantity over quality. I mean, you look at Starbucks, and they very obviously went the quantity rate. In the 80s and 90s, they were doing huge pushes of opening mass amounts of stores at the same time. Boy, you don't ever hear is how in the early 2000s, they came back around and wiped out 30, 40, 50 stores a year because they were just underperformers. So they just go in mass open stores, mass push products, and they circle back around and go, okay, underperform, wipe you out. So there's that method, or there is, like that In-N-Out method where it's like, no, we're going to open quality stores, quality locations, quality products, and sort of create this FOMO around our brand because we're not in every city, we're not on every corner. So we're going to really make you want to come to us. So, there's two different ways of doing that with your brand. You have the coffee shop where you just want to do quantity over quality, get as many feet in the door. Cause that does work. If I have 100 locations open, in 3 years, and I'm pushing traffic through all those locations, maybe in a couple of years I have to open one, but the initial push and profit from those three open at the same time is, I mean, it's still going to make me a profit versus if I was just to open one store every 3 years. It's a really great store. It's a high performer. The product is top tier quality, but what if I had opened 3 more stores that, sort of a mid-tier quality? So really interesting, like think about if you're starting a new coffee shop. Do I want to go quantity or do I want to go quality? I think people inherently want to go quality, but there is an argument for just pushing as many stores as you can too.
Along the lines of availability on the menu, that was one of our clients asked me that recently about, should I just put everything on there? And, I know we talked about it in the menu during the masterclass on how to, kind of present it to your customer base. And you can have a ton of items, but if you want to highlight something and get your foot in the door and kind of make a name for yourself according to your items, that you're selling, it's much easier to just have 5, 3 or 5 real good ones that, we're going to sell well and people get to know you. And that was one, full circle back to Black Rifle. One thing that's interesting is I didn't really notice anything that stood out. So they didn't really, that's not one thing that
Come on, bro. The mule.
Okay, the mule. The mule.
The mule.
But what I mean, I suppose, is a signature. I don't know if it belongs to them or if it's just, they're testing that out. But what they did, like it was their culture, it was their branding that they kind of stuck the flag in the ground with.
You're going to see them, not see their products.
You got to check it out.
Interesting.
I think, there's probably all kinds of things to be said. Like, I know we're Pacific Northwest boys, you know what I mean? So like Voodoo Donuts, like in Portland, you know what I mean? Like there are a million people out there doing donuts. You know what I'm saying? Like there are huge retailers doing donuts, you know what I'm saying? But like Voodoo's got something unique they're doing, and they've leaned into unique, and there's not a million Voodoo Donuts. I'm not trying to open one in every town. Portland's known for being weird. Voodoo leans into that weirdness and makes it part of their brand. And they're a place that lines line up out the door every day for Voodoo Donuts to go to Voodoo Donuts because they're uniquely theirs. And I think there is probably something to be said for the kind of model, like what you were saying, Ben, of what is it you're targeting? Are you trying to be the Walgreens? Are you trying to be the Costco's of like, I'm going to get out as many of these as possible? Or is it, there's something unique that's going to draw people back here. There's something unique that's going to bring them to me because I've leaned into uniqueness.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into making that decision. Like what's the demographic of where are you opening a location in suburbia versus to New York City, like off the street, off, Times Square. Are you opening a location that has primarily heavy foot traffic or primarily heavy car traffic? A lot of that sort of goes into your decision making. But yeah, they're two very different paths inside the coffee industry. And I can see them both as really profitable paths to take as long as you can take the right one.
So how do we get on that? Drew was just talking Black Rifle?
We're just talking about Black Rifle Coffee. We decided to start the meeting too.
I love it. That's great. I walked in, I'm like, wow, these guys are on it. It's 2:01. They're kicking ass and taking names.
Thanks so much for joining us today. For those of you who are looking to become a coffee expert yourself, we offer an incredible, thorough training online for opening your first coffee drive-thru at www.myfirstdrivethru.coffee.